Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. In today's episode, Senia Powell, LMSW, has graced us with her presence. Senia Powell, LMSW, is a native of Greenville, Alabama, the youngest of 9 children and a mother. Senia's self-care activities include traveling, reading, shopping, and spending time with family and friends. As a first-generation college student, Senia attended the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, where she obtained both her bachelor's and master's degrees in social work. Senia began her social work career in 2017 as a case manager at a mental health center in Tuscaloosa and continued thereafter in the mental health field. Throughout her career as a social worker, Senia has worked in hospice care, community outreach and advocacy, and as a school-based social worker. Senia currently works as a care coordinator for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Her ultimate goal as a social worker is to become a full-time professor. Senia is currently in the process of obtaining her clinical license and cannot wait to see where her journey as a social worker will take her. Welcome, Senia. I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Renita. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad that you asked me to be a part of your podcast. I'm really excited.
I'm glad you said yes. Senia, I love your drive. Reading your bio, I was thinking I am the oldest sibling in my family and do not have the youngest sibling in the family perspective. But I am imagining that you could either feel complacent because you have older siblings that may look out for you, or like it appears to be in your case, you could feel highly motivated to be the best you can be. What has been your experience being the youngest of 9?
I honestly feel like it's a little bit of both. With complacency, I feel like, with me, my oldest sister being 20 years older than me and my older brother being like 25 years older than me, I almost feel like they should be like my parents or something. And even, with their children, within my age range. So they're typically looked at as my siblings. So I just like, it's an odd place to be, but I love it. I mean, my siblings, they treat me like their own. They try to act motherly and fatherly, trying to tell me what to do, but at the end of the day, I know they have my best interest in heart, and it's kind of grown on me. And like I don't even worry about it now. If they tell me, hey, don't do this, don't do that, I just know that they can see a little bit further and have a little bit more experience than I do, and can tell me some things that can steer me in the right direction. And in regards to being the best that I can be, I think I know a lot of times they look at me as like the brains. Anything techie or even down to writing a resume, they're always ringing my line. Can you do this for me? Can you? And I, of course, I always say yes, but they always look up to me, to do those little things for them because they're older. And not that they don't know how to do those things. It's just, I feel like it's easier to ask me. So.
I recently read a meme about learning new technology the older you get, and it's like, I don't want to learn how to do that. And you know what? My younger brother, he's the one who actually taught me how to edit this podcast. So I appreciate I appreciate our younger siblings. I really do. Is it a
What
lot
we're
of
here
pressure,
for.
Sania? Because if you have multiple parents, I'm wondering, right? I'm wondering, does
Right.
it feel like a lot of pressure to, be, like you said, be the best you can be?
Um, it is. It has been a lot of pressure. Just because, I'm always seen as the good girl complex, and I try to live up to that, try to walk on a straight and narrow line. Not that I would go out and do something bizarre, but just trying to, you know, say yes or no or something that they may want me to do, or just try not to make a big fuss about something. But here recently I've been going to therapy, and that's one of the things that I've been talking to my therapist about is how to not set up, live up to this house standard, and acknowledging that I'm a human and that I can make mistakes, and just if I can't do something, say no. And if I can say yes, just knowing that, it's up to me to agree to do something and not overload myself.
Such a great answer. And I love their break up that stigma that, social workers can't have therapists too, and Black women can't go to
Absolutely.
therapy, right? So
Right.
I love that you are so transparent with that. Sydney, I am so excited about learning about your social work journey. You want to go ahead and start?
I can. Originally I did not want to do social work. I just kind of fell into it after having a conversation with one of my advisors. When I first attended college, my major was biology. I was going to be a geriatric physician. That was my ultimate goal. And I was taking classes. I think I got up to my not my junior, I'm sorry, my sophomore year. And I was starting to struggle a little bit, but it was manageable. But I didn't feel like it was fulfilling. I wasn't happy with the classes I was taking, and I started doing some volunteer work and just doing, going out and seeing what my day to day would be or could be. I didn't feel like it was fulfilling to me. I wasn't happy doing that. So I just had a conversation with my one of my advisors, and she actually mentioned social work. And I mean, I knew what social work was, but hearing all the stigmas about, you don't make a lot of money, it's not a career that, will be lucrative for you or something that you'll be happy with. I just kind of like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. So she just said, well, just take an introductory course and, come back and talk to me. So lo and behold, I did take the class and I absolutely loved it. I had a really great teacher who just kind of opened up and just shared so many different avenues that we could take as social workers and helped me to realize that it's not about the money, and that, if you're happy doing the work, doing social work, and you find something that that's a good fit for you, you won't worry about it anyway. So I just decided to pursue social work, and here I am today.
Awesome. Do you worry about the money?
No, I don't. I actually don't. I will say, with my experience and work, obtaining my license, I'm comfortable. Like that's not a worry of mine. So, and I love it here.
I love that. I love that. And because I think that's one of my platforms is that I want to break up that particular narrative that social workers don't make any money. I'm not saying that we're billionaires,
Right,
but we can
absolutely.
be. I think we can
We
be.
can be.
But
We
we
can.
are homeowners and car owners and doing
Business
pretty
owners,
well for
right.
business owners, absolutely,
And I
and doing
love the
pretty well.
flexibility as well.
Hmm. Hmm. One of the things I found interesting in your story, just reading your bio, is your first generation college student. You got your undergraduate degree, and somehow you knew to go ahead and get your graduate degree. I know for me, again, I'm the oldest of mine. When I told my mother I was going straight back because got my BSW and went straight into my MSW program, she was like, "Why are you doing that?" And so I'm curious as to like, did you have any pushback going straight into your master's program?
I will say, when I first applied, I actually applied twice. My first time applying, I didn't get accepted into the advanced standing program. I was kind of, a little upset at the moment, but I was just like, well, maybe the time isn't right. So I was working full time in retail, so I just continued to do that. And the next admission cycle, I applied and make sure I had over all my references, a good essay written, and I was able, to be admitted to the program. So, it was a little pushback with me not being admitted because I was like, maybe, social work isn't for me after all. But after just waiting that little period and not giving up, I was able to, to try again, and I was accepted.
I love that you didn't give up, and I did not know that part of your story.
Mhm.
I love that you didn't give up. But now knowing that part of your story, I'm curious, how or why did you know the importance of getting your master's and not stopping?
I think that came back. Well, I know that came from, taking the social work classes as a bachelor's level. They of course, they always told us about the different career paths and different jobs that we can hold, and just knowing that sometimes having the a graduate degree is required to be able to do advanced practice. And with me wanting to become a social work professor in the long run, I know that a terminal degree or a higher level of degree is required to achieve that goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now you have your graduate degree in social work. What were your next steps in your journey?
Right now, I'm working towards my clinical licensure because I know that's important as well to have under my belt. And I've also been thinking about going back to school for another degree. So I just started doing my research. I'm in the initial stages of it, so I haven't made a decision on it. But I do know, with having supervision with you, that a terminal degree is not required, but I mean it looks good on your resume, and you can do a little bit more. But like I said, I'm in the initial stages of thinking about going back to school to obtain that degree.
Awesome. I love that. You're so brilliant in my opinion. And I've been telling everybody, I feels like ever since she's come on the show, every episode since, I've been telling everybody, listen to Dr. R's From Pizza to PhD episode, because she kind of talks a lot about that journey and how rewarding that is as well to get your PhD. Hopefully it's in social work with your BSW, MSW. I would love to see you, Dr. Senia Powell, with your PhD or your DSW in social work. But I want to encourage you to listen to that episode, and everybody out there who's considering it. She did a really good job explaining that journey. Sania, we jumped from where you're going, but talk to me a little bit about the middle part of your social work journey. So after graduating with your master's, did you go ahead and get your license right away? Did you work for a little bit? What was the journey after graduation?
Okay. After graduation, I actually continued to work in retail. I actually worked like another year after graduating, and that just wasn't, I think it's partly by choice and partly by force, but ultimately I was kind of forced out of that job. And I said to myself, well, it's now it's time to utilize my degree. So I started applying for different jobs. A lot of them I didn't get because I wasn't licensed at the time. But I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, well, try mental health. They're always needing people to work in that field. So at our local community mental health center, I applied in Tuscaloosa as a case manager. So I started working there. Absolutely love that job. I think my love for mental health started there. I love my supervisor. I love the population that I work with. And I feel like that was a really, really good starting place for me in my social work career. But I didn't work there long. I ended up having to relocate to another city. And there I continued on with my mental health career in mental health and just gained more experience there. And I was there about a year and a half. Ended up relocating back home because I had some family issues to come up. So that kind of put me at a little standstill. I ended up getting pregnant, and I did hospice for a little while. And I wasn't licensed then, but it wasn't until I started working at hospice that I started to try to pursue licensure. And I'll be honest, my first time I took the test, I went in, I didn't study. I just went in on a whim just to see what I could do. And I actually failed the exam by 2 points. And I think that came because I just took the test, I went through it, and then I went back and second guessed myself. So I was kind of, disgruntled about that, but I didn't give up. I waited a little while. I took the test 2 more times. I didn't pass it 2 more times, but I didn't stop there. I said, well, this time I'm just gonna, give myself a break. I think I took about 6 months before I tested again that for the fourth time. And that last time I truly buckled down. I got a study plan together. I studied religiously every night for about 3 months. And I scheduled my test. I went in and I broke down the test into 4 different quarters. A friend of mine was telling me about the method of breaking the test down into different number of questions. So I did that. And I also wrote my name in LMSW. So I had that vision to look at, while I was taking my test to kind of motivate me. And on my 4th try, I was able to pass my test. And I ended up still working in the school system as a school social worker. And thereafter, I started working with Blue Cross Blue Shield as a care coordinator. And this is where I am now.
I love that. I'm so glad we went back to the middle.
Yeah.
There's a there's a couple of things in that. One, we talked about you not giving up when you didn't get into graduate school the first time. I would, if I had graduated with my undergraduate from Alabama, I would have just made the assumption, I think, too, that, oh, I'm a shoe-in to
Yeah.
get into the master's program. So I love that you didn't give up. So that was the first time I heard you didn't give up. And then if I had taken the test and only failed it by 2 points, I would have just knew the second time that I took it, especially if I put a little bit of effort in, I would have passed it. But to hear that it took you 4 times, I so appreciate you telling us this part of the story, because what we know to be true is, the ASWB, they just came out with their numbers. I keep saying this year, but it was actually last year. And what basically the summary of that is Black and brown women, or folk, I should say, older people and people whose first language isn't English, really struggle to pass the test. And there's a lot of work being done on a policy level in some other areas to write that. But
Right.
for right now, while it's still what it is,
Right.
I think it is so important for people who have tried to take this test time and time and time again to know that they can do it, right? And I guess I'm curious from you, Senia, 4 times,
Four
what
times.
was it in you that said, I'm gonna do this thing?
I just realized, I knew where I was at and I knew where I wanted to go. So that kind of helped me, gain some tunnel vision. And it wasn't that I didn't know the material. It's just I was one of those people that would go through the entire test and I would second guess myself. Like I didn't trust myself. So I had to get to a point where, I'm going to bet on me this time. And I think that's what I got I know that's what I got in my mind on that 4th try. And another thing, I got tired of paying all that money. So I had to do something a little bit different, but it came with me, just trusting myself and knowing that, this is what I need and this is what I have to do. So that last time I took the test, I didn't second guess myself and I actually passed it with flying colors. So just knowing, that and just, reflecting on that, like how many times, in previous situations that I didn't bet on myself and I would have been, in a different predicament. You know what I mean? So I think that was a, game changer for me, just trusting myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, I heard you say you wrote your name down in your letters behind your name. And
I did.
I am always one who talks about Habakkuk 2 and 2, write the vision down and make it
Absolutely.
plain, right? And
Yeah.
so when you write it down and you can see it and you know that this is what's going to happen when I walk out of this room, that confidence and, like you said, betting on yourself and trusting that you knew this material.
Mhm. And I
You
did.
have both your bachelor's and graduate degree from the University of Alabama. That is the top. That was the only
Mhm.
school of social work for over 2 decades. It
I
is the
know.
top tier program. And so, yes,
Absolutely.
ma'am, you knew the material. So I love that you knew that you had to write the vision down and then you knew you had to just trust yourself. Where, Sania, do you see that now in your social work career? Like, do you see opportunities? And I don't know how you're going to answer, and hopefully it makes sense. But do you see where just trusting your gut, trusting yourself, knowing that you know this thing has helped you be the amazing social worker that you are?
Yes, I think just having that mindset now, has helped me to not be stagnant. In my previous job, I feel like I was stagnated. Like I was just there and it wasn't fulfilling. And for some reason I couldn't get over that hurdle. But I know that I'm a good social worker. I know that, I know what I'm capable of, but I was just, for some reason, I couldn't get out of that hump. But I was reminded, about a friend of mine that knew that situation about me, my journey of taking the test and not being able to pass it. And she was like, you know that you can do much better than that. Like you have so much, so much knowledge and expertise that you need to get out and share it out with people. And I just think having those social work friends in my corner to kind of push me and just remind me of that helped me.
You're doing that for us now. You're sharing your wisdom. You're inspiring a bunch of, I mean, I don't ever have to take the LMSW exam ever again, but I am sitting here just so inspired by you and your story. And you're absolutely doing that for us right now. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, just because I didn't, I've known you for a couple of years now, and I did not know so many pieces of your story. And now, even myself feeling inspired, I know that you're inspiring other people who are listening to this as well. So I'm so glad. I'm going to share a little bit. We talked about a year ago and even just a little bit ago about you being, afraid of public speaking. And here you are doing such a good job and
Thank you.
inspiring so many of us. So thank you for saying yes to this. Sania, who were or is your favorite social work instructor and or social work mentor? And what have they taught you?
I'll have to go with Dr. Cassandra Simon at the University of Alabama. She was my favorite social work professor. Um, it's just my first class with her in the upper level courses. I just fell in love with her spirit. She was always so intentional with everything, every lesson, every class. She was just so intentional, so authentic. Everything she shared out with us was just real life, and we all made was able to make connections to it, no matter if we were black, brown, or white. Like she was able to engage us the entire time. And I would have classes with her, the 3 hour classes, that 1 o'clock to the 4:50 class block. And the entire time we learned so much. We were so engaged. And I just love her. I love her life. She was a great social work professor.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. What did she teach you?
I think her biggest thing for me was to be authentic. She always showed up as herself, and not that I would come, or even when I'm working with my clients, that I'm putting on this fake personnel, but she always taught me to be yourself. Don't try to be something or someone that you're not. And I took that from that lesson that she shared with us, and I carry that with me now.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. I love asking that question because I want those who went before us to receive their flowers because in social work we rarely do, right? And so
Right.
if there is a mentor or instructor that made an impact in our lives, I really want us to be able to shout them out. So I'm so glad that she taught you to be your authentic self because I like when you show up as your authentic self.
Absolutely.
Sania, now, knowing what you know now, and so much, oh my goodness, I'm so enjoying this conversation. But knowing what you know now about the social work journey, and you could pack three things with you, what would three things that you would pack in your social work suitcase be?
I would pack in my social work suitcase. Number one, be authentic. Number two, network. And the last one is keep going. Don't stop. If, when it gets hard, find a way to motivate yourself, keep some people around you to motivate you. Always keep going.
Always keep going. You have taught us that. You didn't
Right.
get into your graduate program the first time, and you kept trying. You didn't get in, you didn't pass the test the first time and you kept going. I even am intrigued, just going back just a little bit, that you got pushed out of retail. I love that part of your story that you kind of got pushed out. And again, it was because you were supposed to keep going. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Can you talk to us though a little bit? I don't think I've had anyone on yet on the podcast talk about the important. Well, maybe one, maybe Gabrielle talk about the importance of networking. You said networking, and I agree with you. Why do you think it's important to pack networking in your suitcase?
I think networking is important because it's always good to have a friend in high places, or even, someone that you can call for a resource for even yourself, or even when you're working with your client, and just having someone to know somebody that knows somebody that can put you in places that, sometimes your education or your expertise or your knowledge won't put you in. So just having people in places that can vouch for you, and just having somebody in your corner.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree. And I think too, if we do the job of good networking, it will pay off for our clients, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just kind of, throwing this out to social workers in the field. I know we have 211 here in Alabama or some other resources, but check in with those resources every now and again because there are organizations and agencies that do have high turnover, and make sure the person you talked to the last time is either still there and or who the new contact person is, because sometimes we'll
Absolutely.
give our clients resources and the person we told them to talk to isn't even there
It's
anymore.
no
And
longer
so
there. That's
yeah,
correct.
maybe once a quarter or something, checking in on what your resources are, if that's still a good number, good email. And I think when you also do that, that's just easy, free networking, because then you're
Absolutely.
like, oh, I'm checking in on you, and or oh, you're the new person. Hi, I'm
Hi,
Renita. This is what I do, right? And so I
right.
think just making the investment in networking is so good for our clients. It really is. So I appreciate you said that. Senia, you talked about what you would take with you in your suitcase. What would you leave behind? You got all this junk that we've learned about social work. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna leave these three things behind. I don't need those anymore. What would they be?
I think negativity I would leave behind. Being stagnant, and just not betting on yourself. I know I keep bringing that up because like I said, it was a point where I didn't really bet on myself. Like, I knew who I was and I knew who I was capable of, but I just didn't have that, self awareness that I do now. And no, I would always leave those three items behind.
I'm gonna ask you to expound, right?
Absolutely.
So your first one was negativity. What,
Um,
are you talking about negativity about the profession? Negativity? Talk to me about what you mean negativity.
Negativity about the profession. Because sometimes people can get in your head and just say, "You really like doing that job? Like, you really think you're making an impact?" And like that can kind of weigh on you sometimes, and especially when you're in a place that you don't feel like you're appreciated anyway. And then hearing that little chatter, letting all that negativity go, like leaving that behind. That's one thing that, I feel moving forward in any job or any other career path that I may go on, negativity is out the door.
You're going to listen to yourself and not external voices, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what was that second thing we're leaving behind again?
Being stagnant.
Complacency.
Yes,
Stagnant.
complaint.
Yes. Ooh, I'm so glad you brought that up, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna ask you to expound. Why are we leaving stagnation behind?
And, this is just me personally. I get to a point where I just want to be, the job is easy. The place, I don't have to learn anything new, which I love to learn, don't get me wrong, but it's just that, if I can go somewhere and do the same thing and not have to, um, you know, do anything different, why not leave? Or if I'm doing my same routine every single day and I'm getting, the money's decent, or, my work family, it's okay, but you're just stagnant because you don't want to do more. So just leaving that behind and being able to use, the knowledge and the experience that I have to expand.
I love that. I'm gonna give a little analogy because I love my analogies. I have this plant. I call it my daddy plant. When he died, we get a plant.
Right.
And it's been in the same pot in the same place for years and years and years. It wasn't growing, and it wasn't dying. It was just like we said, complacent. It was like, oh, I get enough water and I get enough light. I'm perfect exactly where I am. I moved it this year to a new location, and it's almost like all the roots that were underground that I never could see, just was like, we've had this potential all these years and we just been waiting to move to a new location. And the thing has taken over my house.
Oh goodness.
Yes. And so sometimes just kind of, it's not, we're not asking people to like, change your whole life, but just
Right.
sometimes just move into a new location, we get to stretch our social work wings and realize we had all of this potential that we didn't even know existed just because we got a little bit out of our comfort zone, right?
Exactly.
I
And that's
cannot wait to see you fly.
Yes, ma'am. And that's kind of where I am now. As I know, that I was on a job for about 4 years, and it's kind of hard for me to leave because I was like 2 minutes away from my house. It was in my hometown. It was flexible. It was easy, but as a social worker, I felt like I kind of outgrew that space. So it was time for me to move out. And since doing that, like I have, I'm blooming. Like I'm doing more. Able to I'm gaining more knowledge, and I'm utilizing the skills that I have, whereas I wasn't, at that job. So I
Exactly.
do.
And I think, we talk a lot about burnout in this field, and burnout looks so different it could be that you have cases that are too many, because that is a thing here in the profession, too many folks on your caseload, or, supervisors who may not be as supportive as we would like for them to be, just so many things. But burnout could also look like you've outgrown the place that you're in and it's time for you to move
Absolutely.
on.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I'm so glad to hear that you have moved on. And like I said, I cannot wait to see you fly. You're already doing that now. The fact that you agreed to come on this podcast, knowing that you are introvert, to me is you betting on yourself like you told us that you would take with you. Senia, we're getting to our last question. And again, like I said, I've so enjoyed this conversation with you. But a lot of social workers I know, like yourself, are high achievers, right? And
Hmm.
one of the things that we have learned is to be flexible with our career due dates. Like you said, you thought you were going straight into your master's program after graduating from the University of Alabama with your undergraduate degree. You thought after you took the test and only, didn't pass it with those 2 points, next time was just going to be a breeze. And so you've kind of taught us you gotta have to be a little flexible with your career due dates. What advice can you give our audience about being patient on your social work journey?
I think the biggest piece of advice is, again, is just don't give up. If you try one thing, it doesn't work, try something different. Don't stick to your old patterns. Try a new avenue, try a new study. And if you're struggling with passing the exam, research some different study methods. Try flashcards, try, a study group. Just don't give up. Just keep going.
Awesome. Awesome advice. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
Sania, thank you so much for spending this time with me and
Thank
for
you.
just inspiring and lighting up. I've been smiling the whole time. That your energy is just so light and beautiful, and it's just so infectious. And just thank you so much for coming on the show
Thank you
and
for
getting
having
out of your comfort zone.
me. You definitely pulled me out of my comfort zone, but I appreciate it, and I needed this.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you liked this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.